Hi, everybody. I'm John Graydon from the Martial Arts Teachers Association. Let's talk about answering price questions. We know that the first question everyone asks is, how much are your classes? So it's important that you're prepared for that question, your staff is prepared for it, and that you handle it professionally. Mind you, I know some gurus that say you should go ahead and just answer the question and not beat around the bush. Well, here's my take on it. Should you give out the price for your lessons? And my answer is not at first, because it's not always the most important thing. It's not as important as people make it out to be, simply because that's the only question they know to ask. And we're going to get over that, and we're going to cover that in depth. So let's get going. What I'm about to teach you will work whether you use contracts or not. I'd like you to learn the contract presentation process regardless, because you'll be that much more prepared whether you sell contracts or not. If you believe your school can help people, then you must learn how to sell or you'll fail them. And that is the mindset. You have to learn these skills, teach your staff these skills, live these skills. If I come in your ninja in your bedroom and shake you and wake you up and say, how much are your classes? That answer needs to come off smooth, sounding like it's unrehearsed, because you rehearsed it so much. Because learning how to sell is a critical skill of any profession, and I want you to be as professional as possible. So here's how you think about it. Think of yourself like a doctor asking the right questions to diagnose how you can help this person. And we're going to go in depth over those questions in a different presentation. We're focusing right now just on price, but regardless, every time someone contacts your school, your goal, every time a prospect contacts your school, is to set an appointment. Your goal with every call is to set an appointment. So you have to learn how to ask for the appointment. And in sales, that's called closing. You're closing out the conversation by setting an appointment. One option is called the alternate of choice close. For instance, our next 2 trial classes are tonight at 6 or tomorrow at 7. Which works best for you? So you're not giving them a choice to come or not to come, you're having them choose between 2 classes. That is an alternate of choice close. That's probably the most common. The assumptive close. So when you bring Sally in, will her dad be able to attend as well? See, I'm assuming that you're coming in. This works also in enrollment conferences when you stand up and grab the uniform and say, what size does Sally wear in her regular clothes? So I'm assuming you're going to go ahead and enroll. In this case, I'm assuming that you're going to come in and set the appointment. And a third example is what you get when you have people that lack confidence in their selling ability, and they'll set weak appointments, tentative appointments, which is called writing bad paper. And it sounds something like this. Tell you what, how about if we set a class for Wednesday at 4 and we'll call you to confirm that day? Whether or not the person agrees to that, that's not really an appointment. That's a tentative appointment, and that's weak. That's not what we want. So let's get back to the question of how much are your classes? One, it's not as important as you think it is. In many cases, that's the only question they know to ask. It's a common question. It's like the weather. Everybody experiences the weather. Everybody experiences prices. So sometimes it is the issue. Usually it's not. Usually it's not a deal breaker. I mean, sometimes it is, and you have to deal with that. And the purpose of all of these questions is to qualify the prospect as a student. And sometimes, I'd say 20–25% of the time, the person really cannot afford your classes. In the vast majority of cases, they can, and that's where we want to get to. So when it comes to dealing with price, we have what we call the 3 times rule. So you want them to ask for price 3 times before you start to give them any serious numbers. So the first time they ask typically is when you answer the phone. For instance, hi, it's John Graydon. Thank you for calling USA Karate. How may I help you? Can you tell me how much your classes are? Sure. Is this for yourself or someone else? I didn't answer the question. I took control of the conversation by asking a question. Is this for yourself or someone else? Now, that's a very important question we'll get into in a different program, but it's important that when somebody calls your school and asks you the price, you have questions prepared to come back to them with. Sure, If you get a pencil and paper, I'll give you some information. Sure, is this for yourself or someone else? Sure, have you ever done martial arts before? So again, we'll get into those kind of questions in a different program. Let's move on to answer number 2, and that has to do with the trial program. There's actually 2 options in option 2, and we're going to go over the trial program first. And this works best if you have a trial program. I like trial programs that have a cost attached because it is a qualifier. It makes a big difference. If somebody's willing to pay $20 for 2 classes, they're willing to invest more than that and train. That's why trial programs that cost typically have a higher closing ratio than free programs. Either way, here we go. Here is the trial lesson pitch. We want to appease their second price request with introductory information. And then we regain control with a comeback question that helps us set up requests for both parents to attend the intro in this instance. For instance, all of our new students go through an introductory course. This is a week of classes and includes a t-shirt for Sally to keep. This course is $19.95 and it's designed to help you answer all the questions you may have about our school and Sally's interest level. What does your husband think about Sally learning karate? That last question is the most important question in the presentation. So she's asking for price. This is the second time she's asked for price. We're going to give her the price of the trial lesson. That's going to appease that request. All of our new students go through an introductory course. This is a week of classes and includes a t-shirt for Sally to keep. This course is $19.95. You never say dollars when you're selling. The only time you say dollars is when you're helping them save money. For instance, it's $19.95, which is a savings of $5. This course is $19.95 and it's designed to answer all the questions you may have about our school and help us determine Sally's interest level. If you leave it there and you don't say anything else, what's her next question going to be? How much are your classes after that? That's why you cannot ever end a statement with a period. Every time you speak to the prospect, the last thing that comes out is a question mark. In this case, what does your husband think about Sally learning karate? That's a great question. It's a qualifying question. We'll deal with that in a different program. The important thing on the trial lesson pitch, though, is that you have this rehearsed. You understand that this is the second time she's asking about price. First was when you picked up the phone. Her first question was, how much are your classes? You said, sure, is this for yourself or someone else? She says, this is for my daughter, Sally. How much are classes? Second request. Then you present this trial lesson presentation or pitch. The most important thing about this, though, again, is that last sentence. What does your husband think about Sally learning karate? That doesn't have to be the question. Do you know where our school's at? Has Sally trained before? There's all kinds of questions you can ask. Again, we'll go over that in a different program. But the key is, I can't emphasize this enough, everything that comes out of your mouth always has to end with a question mark. So let's go to 2B. And that's the variety of programs presentation. This is a little more wordy, but this is when they're pressing. So this is an option if you don't have a trial program or you want to use the trial program as the second and this is the third, it's just an option. But this is a great answer to the question the second or third time, how much are your classes? Yes, ma'am. Well, so since every martial arts school is different, we use the trial program so you can see why we think we have the best program in the area. The introductory course will tell us a lot about Sally's level of involvement and interest in our school. The class works as a mutual evaluation. We'll evaluate Sally for an entry-level trial program, provided the instructor feels she is ready to start classes. That's a good line. Provided the instructor feels she's ready to start classes. In other words, this is a mutual qualification. We're not desperate to get Sally in here. We're going to evaluate her and see if she's going to work in our classes. Does she fit the culture and climate of our school? So back to the script. This also gives you a chance to evaluate our instructors in school and also determine what Sally's interest level really is. Then we'll work out an individual program. And here's the line. We have a variety of programs offering tremendous flexibility depending on the arrangements you want to make. In reality, you could skip the first 2 paragraphs. second or third time she asks about pricing, we have a variety of programs that offer tremendous flexibility depending on the arrangements you want to make. So what has to come after that line? Of course, it's also very important that your husband also be present at the introductory course. Will he be able to make the 6th class or tomorrow night's 7 o'clock class? Again, alternate choice closed. And the reason we want the husband there is because we want to have all decision makers. But we're not talking about in this one because we're dealing with price questions. So that was 2B. 2A was the trial program. 2B was the variety of programs. And this last one is the reduction to the ridiculous in sales. In this case, we're going to reduce it to the per class. So as I said before, this is the 3rd time she's pressing hard. As I said, she's pressing hard. Here's our response. As I said, we offer a variety of programs offering tremendous flexibility. Most of our classes are in the $10 to $12 range. That's why we have a trial program, so you can make an evaluation of our school with experience rather than a phone call. That's why we have the trial program, so you can make an evaluation of our school with the experience rather than a phone call. That's a great line. And here's the most important part. Our next trial program is tonight at 6 or tomorrow at 5. Which would work best for you and Sally? Now at this point, you have given a pretty clear indication of what your classes cost. At this point, if this person balks at that, you can continue to try to get them in for the trial because you don't want them to evaluate your school just on price. On the other hand, 20% of the people that call truly are not going to be able to afford that. And by asking these questions and handling this like a pro, you are not wasting their time or your time. So notice that we make them work to get this. Now, if we answer this right off the bat, that 20% would bail, but a lot of the other 80% would as well because they're valuing your school only on price because that was the first thing you talked about. Remember in the very beginning, should you give the price out? The answer is not at first. You have to make them work for it only because it helps to qualify them for your school and qualify your school for them. It's a mutual evaluation program. So we don't give any price information out until the third or fourth request for it. And then the question becomes, wow, why is that so much? You know, the recreation center is only $30 a month. And you will get that question, and here's a great response for it. Mrs. Jones, we've carefully evaluated how to structure our tuition, and we decided early that we would not compete on price alone. You know, we could offer our programs at half price like the rec center, but we'd be packed in here with kids. That makes it hard to give the personalized attention we like to give each student. It also becomes a safety hazard when classes get too big. And it's important to understand, we're not a sport like baseball. We're a martial arts. We're a martial arts school. We teach character and confidence and commitment to these kids. And actually, you insert there whatever her goals are. And that's, again, a different presentation. We're a martial art that teaches character, confidence, and commitment. This is a progressive learning program, not a drop-in program. And here's the line, we are a school, not a playing field. And the best way to show you that is with our trial program. So do you work till 5? Would 5:30 tonight be a good time, or would tomorrow work better? Always finishing with a question, ideally an alternative choice between two classes. So in summation, a quick recap. You want to learn this as though you're presenting very expensive contracts, because what you're actually presenting is very expensive benefits. What would someone pay to give their child confidence? What would someone pay to give their child the ability to defend themselves? What would someone pay to have their child conduct themselves with more self-control and respect? That is invaluable. How much is your black belt worth to you? It is worth a lot. So what we're selling has a high price value, and it's important that that doesn't scare you off, because Again, if you believe your school can help people, then you have to learn how to sell or you're going to fail them. Learning how to sell is a critical skill. Learning how to deal with price questions requires rehearsal. Read these scripts, drive around, say them to yourself over and over again out loud. Do role plays in your school. Because remember, you're like a doctor, asking the right questions to diagnose how you can help this person. And if you don't learn how to sell, you don't learn how to deal with the price question, you're going to have a lot of potential students go to a cheaper school where they will not get the quality they could have experienced with you. I'm John Graydon. I hope this has helped. Thank you.